on the phone. It's a pleasure to welcome back to the program the director of Gasland and Gasland II, Josh Fox. Josh, welcome back.
Thanks so much, Sam. It's great to be on.
Now, the last time we spoke was about a year ago, almost to the day. You were on a train coming back from Washington, D.C. You had just been led out of a committee hearing in handcuffs for attempting to the crazy notion that somehow that the hearing should be videotaped in some manner.
Right.
And it's a scene towards the end of the film, and it really, in many respects, sums up the difference between Gasland I and Gasland II in terms of just how much our government has been our processes have been made opaque, and in many respects because of the money from this natural gas and oil industry.
Go ahead.
Please.
Well, I think that's putting it mildly. I mean, what you're describing is there was a case that I had been following for 4 years, which is a case of water contamination, groundwater contamination due to hydraulic fracturing in Pavilion, Wyoming. If you've seen either of the films, you know the amazing, iconic, real-life cowboys out in Wyoming, John Fenton and Lewis Meeks, who had water contamination. One of their water wells exploded with natural gas for 3 days. They had benzene in their water, 50 times the safe level. EPA had come in, done a 3-year study, and verified that their contamination was due to fracking, and it was a thunderbolt from this tiny little town, 150 people in the middle of Wyoming. Lo and behold, here it is, EPA confirming what everybody already knows, that fracking contaminates groundwater. That science was being attacked by the Tea Party head chair of the Science Committee in the House of Representatives, Andy Harris, and we could tell that this is what they were going to do, that the House of Representatives was going to attack EPA's science. So we wanted to be there after following this investigation for 4 years, went in to register to tape the hearing, as journalists do, as we had done many, many times, and consistently got rejected, and we figured out that they were basically barring our cameras from the proceedings because of the perspective of our films. That's a First Amendment violation. You're not allowed to say, no, you can't come in because of your opinions or your perspective. You could only say, well, we don't have room. No one else was signed up for this. I went in anyway, took my camera out of my bag, began to set up, and lo and behold, 18 police officers came in and arrested me, and I basically said to the hearing room, this is a public hearing. I'm within my First Amendment rights, and I'm being taken out. They arrested me. And this is the kind of thing that sums up so much the conversation. Gasland II is an inquiry into another layer of contamination due to fracking, not the water, not the air, but the contamination of our political system. The first film is really about watching people light their water on fire and other water contamination and other environmental and health problems due to fracking. This film is really about the natural gas industry lighting our democracy on fire, and that every dollar that they inject into the political system is a contaminant in our democracy. And you watch over and over again in this film, it's a roller coaster ride of following families as they have scientific evidence of contamination, they have real proof. And then at the regulatory level, at the state level, at the local level, and at the federal level, time after time after time, enforcement and action and government change gets taken away from them by the immense pressure of oil and gas. It's not just money. A lot of it is relationships. A lot of it is the way in which the oil and gas industry will exert tremendous pressure on our elected representatives, on our regulatory agencies. And this roller coaster ride is, every bit as shocking as watching the first film where you see people light their water on fire. In this case, we're watching as the story gets controlled and retold by the industry instead of by the people. And in that instance, it was clear, Josh, no, you and HBO and your documentary crew may not tell the story of how we're going to attack science in the Science Committee. We're going to do this without public realizing it. And it totally backfired. After I was arrested, I was told that I was the first journalist to ever be arrested in Congress simply for attempting journalism. And then I spent the next 3 days on television and on your radio program and things like that, alerting people to the fact that this is what was going on. The disturbing footnote to this story is just a month ago, the federal government, the Obama administration, the EPA, handed over this investigation, the same one that I was arrested for, to the state of Wyoming, the state that was openly hostile to the science from the beginning, with a $1.5 million contribution to do the investigation from the company being investigated itself. Encana, a Canadian drilling giant, is now paying for the investigation that's going to investigate them. I wonder how that's going to turn out.
That's
it is
stunning.
Absolutely jaw-dropping what the Obama administration has just signed off on, which is to basically hand the chicken factory over to the foxes, and those people in Wyoming are stunned. They feel they have no recourse. They've been pursuing this through the government for 4 years, and it's just incredibly upsetting and frustrating.
Yeah, I want to talk about that element of the film in a bit. I mean, you started off the film, and I have to say, we spoke yesterday in doing an interview for Ring of Fire that will air over the weekend, and we had started off the interview by saying that I thought that Gasland II was a little bit darker because of that element that you brought in, and just how now that years later there was a sort of a body of evidence, the way that it was being neglected and the way that the implications it was for our democracy. And you start off the film by saying that, the sequel's called Empire Strikes Back. But before we get to that, in some respects, the Jedi has already returned. You got some great news just yesterday when we had spoken about the Delaware Basin. Tell us about that.
Well, this is amazing. I mean, the real antidote when your government is being taken away from you is to reinvent democracy. And that's what the fracking movement has done, and has done that to great amount of success. Most successful where there hasn't been drilling so far. The state of New York, for example, the whole state, we were told 4.5 years ago that, you're never going to stop the gas industry from coming in. These are the most powerful corporations ever in history. There's nothing you're going to be able to do about it. Well, that was wrong. New Yorkers organized in record numbers to keep out. I mean, hundreds of thousands of people commenting on the environmental impact statement, protests, acts of civil disobedience, constant pressure on Governor Cuomo, making this an issue that the New Yorkers simply won't stand down on, and has prevented the gas industry from coming into New York State. The same thing has happened in the Delaware River Basin. 2 years ago, there was proposed regulations would have opened up the Delaware River Basin to 18,000 gas wells. The river basin on the Pennsylvania side, now that's the watershed for New York City. The big reservoirs, the river comes out of those reservoirs and goes down to Philadelphia altogether, bringing water to 15, 16 million people in southern New Jersey and Philadelphia and New York City. That's the Delaware River Basin. They were proposing to put in 18,000 gas wells on the Pennsylvania side. The river's the border, Pennsylvania and New York. And the gas industry, Hess and Newfield and Chesapeake, had leased 80,000 acres in a massive lease done with a bunch of different landowners. 80,000 acres. My whole township was 60% leased.
And
now, that was only 30% of the
impetus.
population. What happened yesterday is the gas companies finally cried uncle and said they were dropping their leases, and they said the moratorium that the people forged in the river basin was too much. They had outlasted them. They said, we're done, goodbye, we're leaving. And they literally broke their leases. I do not know what the world looks like right now. The property across from my house was leased, and it was terrifying to think that at any minute this place could get industrialized and turned over. Now those companies have, with their tail between their legs, disappeared, and it just shows the power of what happens when people organize. And similar things are happening like that in Colorado. Californians Against Fracking just started. In the first 6 months, 100 organizations signed on to Californians Against Fracking. Their mission is a ban on fracking. It's France just came out, and we ran Gasland on TV in France and Germany last week. The French Prime Minister came out again and said, we're not going to have fracking in France in my term. Spain just banned fracking. We're seeing a movement internationally and across America that's very exciting, that's about taking our democracy back from these companies that would seek to just pervert it.
And we should say that it was those leases that were the impetus for your first film.
Yeah.
So
that 80,000 acre lease was the same lease that we got. I mean, we were part of that leasing pool, and the terms were being worked out of it by, when I was first working on the first film. It hadn't been signed by everyone during the first film. I found out, and you find out at the opening of the second film, that it has been signed, and that now the property right across from me is leased, and it's an escalation of things. And no one expected this. It is a huge moment, though, of victory, realizing that now all of a sudden we're talking about the Upper Delaware River. I mean, it's a small victory, but in a sense, it's huge, and it's something that we have to celebrate. And it's because citizens in the Upper Delaware, you go up there and you go in that region, you'll see those anti-fracking lawn signs. You'll see a whole lot of organizing of that population against this, to protect what they had, to protect their land rights, to protect their property values, to protect their water, and also to protect the water for all those people downstream who benefit from the fact that those citizens are water stewards, and they should really be rewarded for that in that capacity.